This episode is sponsored in part by our friends at Vultr, spelled V-U-L-T-R, because they're all about helping save money, including on things like, vowels. So what they do is they are a cloud provider that provides surprisingly high performance cloud compute at a price that, well, sure, they claim it is better than AWS's pricing. And when they say that, they mean that it's less money. Sure, I don't dispute that. But what I find interesting is that it's predictable. They tell you in advance on a monthly basis what it's going to cost. They have a bunch of advanced networking features. They have 19 global locations and scale things elastically, not to be confused with openly, which is apparently elastic and open. They can mean the same thing sometimes. They have had over 1 million users. Deployments take less than 60 seconds across 12 pre-selected operating systems, or if you're one of those nutters like me, you can bring your own ISO and install basically any operating system you want. Starting with pricing as low as $2.50 a month for Vultr Cloud Compute, they have plans for developers and businesses of all sizes, except maybe Amazon, who stubbornly insists on having something of the scale all on their own. Try Vultr today for free by visiting vultr.com/screaming, and you'll receive $100 in credit. That's vultr.com/screaming. Good morning, AWS. The US-east-1 region did what I did after reInvent last week and took a well-deserved nap on Tuesday. Amazon's write-up of the incident is well worth reading for some of the hidden gems in there, such as Route 53's control plane is homed in US-east-1, so apparently using it for DNS around anything you intend to fail over during a region-wide outage is a big mistake to avoid. As a customer, it's extremely disappointing. But today, at least we learned now. Guess what I'll be moving next week? Let's dive in and see what else happened. AWS Control Tower now provides controls to meet data residency requirements. Yeah, let's talk about this in the context of what it actually is. You can now use Control Tower to ensure your users don't spin up resources in regions that you don't want resources within. We've been asking for this sort of thing for many years, and now it's here. Amazon Location adds suggestion capability. We suggest you go screw yourself. Here's a map you can follow to get there. Amazon Route 53 updates API actions. Route 53 has an API? Kinda. It's more of a relic of a world that was way more into XML than ours is, but at least now it spits out domain pricing and lets you delete domains. Sadly, I don't think it lets you delete other people's domains. Amazon VPC announces IP Address Manager, IPAM, to help simplify IP address management on AWS. AWS attempts to validate Microsoft Excel's market. They're doing so by moving your IP address management spreadsheet online into a service that charges about 20 cents per month per IP address in the sheet. The pricing model, as well as the pricing itself, is of course completely clown shoes as AWS hurdles ever deeper into solid day 2 territory. Introducing AWS Repost, a new community-driven question and answers service. Congratulations to AWS for gating this behind an AWS account instead of a community identity. You've just inadvertently created what is, from a certain point of view, the most screamingly expensive content paywall in the entire history of the internet. AWS SDK for Rust developer preview. I misread this as CDK and for a heart-stopping moment thought that combining those two things was a perfect storm to get evangelists to talk themselves to death. New sustainability pillar for the AWS well-architected framework. At some point, you've got so many pillars that you've just built a wall with extra steps. Still, this is a worthy one to have. Right-size permissions for more roles in your account using IAM Access Analyzer to generate 50 fine-grained IAM policies per day. The IAM Access Analyzer is awesome, but you can only use it a little bit each day. You can't be too secure, only a little bit more secure than you are now. Creating a multi-region application with AWS Services, Part 1, Compute and Security. Someone should read this to the AWS Support API, the Management Console, the billing system, and any other global AWS services that fell over along with US East-1 last week. Red Hat OpenShift service on AWS ROSA annual contracts. This is a great example of a service knowing its own audience. Procurement likes to know how much something's going to cost and pay for it up front. Chime SDK for telemedicine solution. Chime SDK for telemedicine. That sounds like a great product to build. No, it's too high up the stack. You're only allowed to stitch it together yourself with some CloudFormation monstrosity. This episode is sponsored in part by our friends at Chaos Search. You could run Elasticsearch or Elastic Cloud or OpenSearch as they're calling it now, or a self-hosted Elk stack. But why? Chaos Search gives you the same API you've come to know and tolerate, along with unlimited data retention and no data movement. Just throw your data into S3 and proceed from there as you would expect. This is great for IT operations folks, for app performance monitoring, cybersecurity. If you're using Elasticsearch, consider not running Elasticsearch. They're also available now in the AWS Marketplace if you'd prefer not to go direct and have half of whatever you pay them count toward your EDP commitment. Discover what companies like Equifax, Armor Security, and Blackboard already have. To learn more, visit chaossearch.io and tell them I sent you just so you can see them facepalm yet again. Introducing app config feature flags in preview. Didn't CloudWatch evidently just launch in an ill-fated attempt to compete with LaunchDarkly? Didn't I do a video on just how inscrutably garbage App Config's console is? AWS is indeed inscrutable in its choices. Sorry, two competing services that both do a thing badly is absolutely not something a customer has asked for. Calculating data transfer, leveraging Amazon VPC flow logs. Customers asked for all of these services, claimed Werner during his keynote. Well, customers are asking to not have to pay AWS extra money to figure out why they're paying AWS money, an awful lot. And I don't see any first-party services making that part any easier. Just ridiculous nonsense we have to build ourselves like this solution. How AWS uses AI to power interactive artwork at new Smithsonian exhibit. Meanwhile, IBM uses their refusal to meaningfully change since the 1980s to remain an old Smithsonian exhibit at the Museum of Natural History next to the other dinosaurs. And finally, announcing second AWS top secret region, extending support for U.S. government classified missions. Spare a thought for the person who had asked someone in the U.S. government a question that included the phrase, "put out a press release around the top secret region." And that's what happened last week in AWS. I'm cloud economist Corey Quinn. I'll talk to you soon.
This has been a Humble Pod production. Stay humble.